Okay, here we go. I'm going to use Reason, and the reason that I'm using Reason is that Reason has a very good graphical interface that just I find it's very useful for learning. So here we have a synth just playing a very static bass line into this first input of this mixer, and then a drum machine, kind of a loop going into the second input. And if I was to play this from the top, this is what it sounds like. So you can see the synth's going into 1 and the loop machine is going into 2. Now, if you were to flick the rack around, if you've never seen this in Reason, this will be very interesting. All you need to do is hit the tab key and bang, you actually see the back of the rack, and then you can move these cables around. You can just grab them and move them anywhere you like. The great thing about that is that you can do some very cool routing, and then you can visually see exactly what you're doing. So let me flip the rack around, and we're going to place a compressor across this synthesizer. And the way you do that is you just start shopping in all of your Reason devices, and I'm going to grab this compressor and I'm going to drag it underneath this synthesizer. So now this synth is going to get compressed, and let me just get rid of that. And the routing, as you'd expect, has all been done for you. You hit the tab key, and now instead of the output of the synthesizer going straight into the first channel, it actually goes into the compressor, and then the output of the compressor then follows along to that first input. So you can see that this compressor has been inserted between the synth and the mixer, just like you'd expect it. Now, so if I flip this back around, then if you were to lower the threshold, then this synth would get compressed. But the interesting thing about this synth thing, the reason I chose it is a very static sound. It just goes on, it just basically drones. And to show how we can do sidechain, I'm going to set this compressor up a special way so that instead of it's looking at its input in terms of the detection circuit, that's normally how compressors work, right? We've seen that all the time, is that whatever comes into here, if it passes the threshold, then it will start compressing that same signal. Here we're going to do something different, and we're going to flip the rack around, and instead of the loop machine, let me just drag those out so now they're not connected anywhere. Instead of them going into the second input and actually hearing them, what I'm going to do is take the outputs of them and put them into the sidechain in. So now what's going to go on is that this compressor is, the detection side of this compressor is no longer going to be looking at its input, but it's going to be looking at the sidechain input, which is going to be this very percussive loop. So if this all works to plan, and I flip this back around, then when I run this, then this very static synth should start getting quite rhythmic because its detection circuit is going to be triggered by this loop playback. And let's see if this is all working. We lower the threshold and bring up that ratio. So check that out. We now have a synth part that is normally very static. Let me bypass that. So it's just static as all get out. But now when you turn it on and it has the sidechain input, remember if we flip that back around, the reason it's bouncing all over the place is because its sidechain input is being triggered by this loop machine.